Thank you very much indeed, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to have the courage to consider and think about controversial things, or to look at all different options, particularly when it comes to meeting the energy challenge we have before us, which is to remove ourselves from our dependence on imported fossil fuels and to create a sustainable, secure and competitive energy supply for our people. And in that, over the years, many years now, kind of considering and looking at that question, I've always said that we shouldn't consider a whole variety of different options, but followed on fairly quickly with, I think, any independent analysis of the potential for the nuclear option being used in Ireland to generate electricity would show that it's not going to be one that we are going to turn to. And the reality of that is behind very well understood, I think relatively easy, I think hope to explain physics and economics issues or concerns regarding the technology. Most new nuclear power plants, ones being built or just recently concluded or commissioned in the likes of Finland or France or elsewhere, come of a size about 1.5 gigawatts that make it incredibly expensive should we use it in the Irish grid. Because in a grid in Ireland, we're currently probably using about 5 gigawatts. You always have to have backup power to complement the risk. Nuclear power plants have to be turned off on a very regular basis for safety or maintenance or other reasons. So you have to have at all time an equivalent amount of power available. Should you have to switch off instantaneously a nuclear power plant, you have to be running as a spinning reserve 1.5 gigawatts of running power as well. And in a system the size of Ireland, that makes it totally uneconomic. And in any case, as we've seen in the UK, and the UK are equivalent to us, and well, I mean, they've got 60, 70 years of building nuclear plants. We don't have any experience or any waste issue problems with it, but they do. But they have a lot of experience and history and similar modern economy to us. The cost of that plant, not only would you have to pay for this 1.5 gigawatts of additional spinning reserve, but the cost is likely to be equivalent to what the UK are currently paying, which is a multiple of what the alternative power supplies we have available to us. And we've no expertise, and we would end up having a waste and a disposal problem that we don't currently have. And actually, even with, yes, nuclear power generates low carbon electricity, but it's not always as secure as some people think in terms of, I mean, it's interesting, I meet my French counterpart a lot in the last 6 months. The French hold the presidency of the European Council at this present time. And she tells me that they have a real tight situation in France because a lot of their nuclear plants are out of action. They're finding that they have a series of issues around some of the boilers or other the technical aspects of it that they're really close to not having enough power, as are we for different reasons. But it's not a magic, easy fix solution. And we have to be upfront and honest about that. And it's incredibly expensive. And it brings waste and other issues that would be long-term expenses. Had we built Carnsore in the first place 40 years ago now, we would be now decommissioning it. I also meet on a regular basis my Belgian counterpart, Belgian Energy Minister, who's decommissioning some of their nuclear power plants because they've come to the end of their lifetime. It's phenomenally expensive and complex and difficult and not easy. So we don't have that problem, and we have alternatives that we can switch to. Now, Senator Keoghan kind of makes the case for modular nuclear reaction, which would overcome some of those size difficulties. But again, when I talk to the people, experts and others involved in the industry and elsewhere, and I say, can you show me these, operating, where could I buy them? Where could we, and they're on a design table, some in a university or in some distant location where someone's thinking about how it might work, and not deployable. And from my sense, not deployable for decades to come. So I don't believe it is a viable alternative and solution. Now, we will be importing nuclear power. We already are. Some of the electrons that have been used to light this room at this moment are probably coming from the UK. I haven't checked the grid system at the moment, but it's likely that it's importing from the UK. Some of those electrons will be generated by nuclear power. We're going to develop further interconnection, particularly with the UK in 2024 and France a couple of years later, the Celtic interconnector, and that will be connecting a French nuclear system to an Irish renewable system. That can balance and work well for us, in my mind. That is a very economic way of distributing, selling our surplus when we have it, and at times of shortfall, importing power. So it's not that there won't be nuclear power in our system, but it won't be generated here, and the economics will work much better when it's done as part of a European interconnected system. Can I say then, if I can, to address some of the other elements of the, what's a very wide-ranging, and I think that's appropriate, motion, because we have to consider in energy so many different options, so many different aspects to it. The issue about gas exploration and further gas infrastructure into Ireland. Can I say firstly on that? Firstly, I believe in Ireland's case, where we have gone out, is it over 150 times, at very expensive, up to 100 million euros a time to fund the drilling wells in a very harsh environment. We've only found gas, is it 3 times? Kinsale, Seven Heads, Corrib. We've never found oil in commercial quantities. All the likely sites, and they're diminishing number, are very deep, far distant western waters, highly speculative, and with no real proven track record. We just don't have a lot of oil and gas reserves. So I don't believe that it would give us any gas security to think, oh, well, if we just keep on exploring, we might find something. Highly unlikely, incredibly expensive. And if the world keeps on exploring for oil and gas in that way, we're going to completely blow the climate targets that are vital for us to maintain a stable, habitable planet for our people. So I don't believe oil or gas exploration have a future in Irish energy. I think it was absolutely appropriate for, was it the last government stopped oil and then this government stopped gas? That wasn't a contentious point of debate in the programme for government negotiations, because everyone knows that that's not really where the investment needs to go. That's not where our energy future lies. Now, things have changed. Everything has changed. The world has changed since even that time 2 years ago. We were looking at this issue because of the war in Ukraine, and actually even leading up to the war, the turning off of the gas tap by the Russian government, by Gazprom, in advance of the war, was what put those energy prices up a year ago, which has in turn also put gas prices up particularly, which has in turn put up the price of electricity. And since the war, I mean, we've seen gas prices anything from 3 to 5 times what they would have been a year and a half or 2 years ago. So that's an incredible shock to the entire economic system, to all the bills that everyone are paying. And it's led to a complete review of what Europe and what Ireland and every country is doing in terms of energy security. In that regard, Ireland is in different circumstances to the rest of Europe. The gas that we use, 1/4 of it comes from Corrib, 3/4 comes from the UK and Norway. The vast majority of that gas interconnection is directly from Norwegian or North Sea fields into the UK system and into Ireland. There's a very relatively thin pipeline from the UK into the continent, gas pipeline. So even if the demand for gas in Germany, Belgium, Holland increases, which it will because they switch away from Russian gas, we are still in a relatively secure place. We don't rely on Russian gas, only 2 or 3% of our needs typically historically. And that Norwegian UK gas is always going to be there for the UK, Ireland system, because it doesn't have an easy alternative route back into the continental market. All of Europe, many countries in Europe, particularly those that are looking now to switch away from Russian gas, are looking at LNG and are considering those options during contracts, which is understandable because they have to switch away from Russian gas. We're in a different position. There are planning applications in for use of LNG in the likes of Shannon Estuary. Everyone will know I don't need to recite all the history in terms of government commentary and so forth on that. But I'd like to make a couple of points. Well, firstly, if we were to introduce LNG and then also at the same time introduce demand for the gas that it would bring in, which I think is what's needed to make it an economically viable project, that too would burst our climate limits, because that huge level of demand emissions would probably be North American or Canadian gas, more likely could come from Qatar, but more likely to come from the West, would be burnt here, and all the emissions accounted with it would send us over the limit. And I think there's also a question when we consider then what's the most best secure options for us. In likely either Cork Harbour or Shannon Estuary, because they're the two deep water ports where the likes of you could cater for shipping, carrying any such material. It's interesting actually, look at what's actually happening and what are the energy investment options that are being considered. In Shannon, ESB, which is a long and proud and skilled record in terms of energy delivery in this country, they want to go hydrogen, connect to power generation on the Moneypoint site, because they see the conversion of our offshore renewable capability into a storable energy source such as hydrogen is actually where all the investment and attention and development and interest is going in energy markets. And we have a comparative competitive advantage, particularly in the west of Ireland in that wind, converting it to hydrogen and using it in a backup system where that grid connection into Moneypoint is either running on wind or when wind isn't blowing, running on stored hydrogen which backs it up. That's a very compelling, sensible, deliverable, achievable, secure, low carbon, indigenous energy system. And the question we're asking, we have to ask in our energy security review, which we're doing at the moment, is a fundamental question. Is Shannon Estuary going to go hydrogen or is it going to go fossil fuels, green hydrogen? And the Shannon Area Task Force, I think, has the same question, should have the same question on their table in the same timeframes that they're going to have to consider by the end of the autumn. They should ask the same question and listen to all the different views. I ask every time I go out to the country and meet people with real experience, and they ask the question, what do you think? Should we go LNG or should we go hydrogen? Vast majority of experts I talk to, in Ireland's case, where you've got a reliable gas supply for the next 10 years, yeah, I'd go hydrogen. In 10 years' time, that's where the investment will be. But we'll look at all the options and consider all the alternatives and not rule anything out. But that's what when I ask independent outside experts, that's what I hear a lot. Same in Cork. If you look at Cork, again, same capability, potential, offshore wind connecting into a deep water harbour where you could convert to hydrogen or ammonia. What's actually happening there? Well, the energy people who are in the business, who are investing, the likes of the Whitegate oil refinery, again, they're very interested. When I meet them, they're talking hydrogen, are interested in it in terms of could that be the next investment, or other indigenous companies down there already working with the power plants, working with the energy users, the big energy users. In Cork, the biopharma, in Shannon, the aluminium smelting. When they come to me, what they're saying is we're interested in hydrogen because that's where they see the investment in new technology going. I'm just sharing what I see and what's happening and what is going to come. So we will have that hydrogen strategy again by the end of the year, and that will help us. Lastly, I'd say, and I don't unfortunately wish I had the time to go into the full question around this renewables and energy efficiency for future, which I see as the alternative. And it is the balancing between the two, variable demand and variable supply, is the new industrial revolution that's taking place. And storage will have a key component in it, in electric batteries, as well as in hydrogen, as well as other kind of interconnection and other storage and transportation systems. Come back to the point about, and I know I read Senator McDougall regularly in the Irish Times appalling that this renewables efficiency revolution is a cod and we're being fooled and this is terrible and the Institute of Energy Engineers think something different. They may well do. But yesterday Europe presented its repower policy in response to the need to move away from Russian gas. And what they're saying is we fast forward to a green transition. The headline in their press release. It's all about efficiency. It's all about promoting renewables. Yes, it says for certain countries they have to look at LNG, but this is European economic, energy, climate strategy. And they're not doing it because of any ideology. It's because this is the more secure way. This is where the jobs will come. This is where Europe does have scale, capability, expertise, and Ireland's the same. So we have this, our sea area is 10 times or 7 times our land area. We're good at renewable energy, we're good at integrating it, we're good at efficiency. And yes, we have to manage demand. We haven't approved a new data centre in almost 2 years now, because we realise we do have to be careful and make sure that they are part of the climate solution, not just operating separate to the limits that we have to live within. But this is where the energy investment is going. This is where we have expertise and capability. And I would believe, and while I very much appreciate the motion, understand the sentiments behind it, I think the renewable, efficient, interconnected storage, green hydrogen future is the one for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed.